Coming up on the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
I'm feeling finally much more grounded these days. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure things out the last year, especially the past few months. And I needed to get clearer on what I really want to share with all of you in this podcast moving forward. And I also had to be honest with myself. And I think that's what I've been working on the most. And one of the truths that I've come to realize is that this podcast is not for you. This podcast is for me.
Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis, a podcast for people navigating the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. I'm your host, Billy Lahr, an educator, personal trainer, meditation teacher, and overthinker who talks to experts who specialize in social and emotional learning, mindfulness, physical and emotional wellness, cultural awareness, finances, communication, relationships, dating, and parenting, all in an effort to help us better reflect, learn, and grow so we can live a more purpose-filled life. Take a deep breath, embrace the present, and journey with me through the Mindful Midlife Crisis. Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. I'm your host, Billy Lahr. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are. The purpose of this show is to help you navigate the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. One way I do this is by providing a platform that gives people the space and permission to share their practical expertise and relatable life experiences that inspire you to become more clear, consistent, connected, and compassionate in pursuit of your own future goals. If you want to listen to some of my favorite conversations from the past, visit www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com/fanfaves. That's where we post past episodes that generated the most buzz from our loyal listeners like you, just like my conversation with Dr. Yvette Erasmus. That's episode 19, where we talked about compassionate communication for deeper, more meaningful relationships. That's actually the episode I suggest to everyone who is new to this show because Dr. Yvette is incredible. We actually invited her back the following season. That's episode 36, Finding Our Meaning and Purpose Through Self-Journey, which is essentially what this podcast is all about. Lately, though, I've been sharing how practicing intentional and mindful living over the last 10 years has helped me navigate the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of my own midlife crisis. Being more intentional and mindful has helped me process my anxiety in a much healthier way by reducing my emotional reactivity and impulsive behavior, which in turn has helped me improve my relationships and communication with others. So, if you're ready to make a meaningful change in your life, visit www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com and download my free Jumpstart Your Midlife workbook. This workbook offers a comprehensive guided approach that will help you transform your midlife years with actionable steps, reflective exercises, and practical insights that will empower you to unlock your potential and build a more fulfilling life for yourself. These are the same skills, strategies, and resources I use in my own life based on years of research and experimentation to find a bit more calm and clarity amidst the chaos. So if you're ready to take the leap, go to www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com and take action now. But here's the deal. I don't have all the answers, and neither does that workbook. And you'll certainly hear that I don't have all the answers throughout this episode in particular, because there have been and are still days when I am a hot mess navigating this thing called life, just like you are doing. But by sharing my experiences as well as the experiences of others, my hope is that you'll see you are not alone in your experience. Because when we journey together and offer encouragement, we create a stronger, more connected community where everyone can thrive, because at the end of the day, we'll always achieve more working together than we ever could alone. So, it's been a while. Did you miss me? Listen, even if you didn't miss me, it feels good to be back on the mic after such a long break. And I actually wanted to start off this neo-renaissance of this podcast
by catching people up on what's been going on with me and what I've learned along the way and why I decided to bring the show back again. We've done this a couple times, but here we are. We're back again. And there may be some of you out there, you just don't care about all of this. But my guess is that if you don't care, you probably unsubscribed a long time ago, so you're not listening anyway. So for those of you who are still listening, first of all, thank you for coming back. Thank you for staying subscribed. I truly appreciate each and every single one of you. You may have also noticed that this is episode 180, even though the last episode I released was episode 118. You can think of those missing episodes between 119 and 179, kind of like those silent hidden tracks that you used to have on your old CD albums. Like, do you remember the Nine Inch Nails Broken EP when you thought track 6, Gave Up, was the last song, but then it goes to track 7 for 2 seconds and then track 8 for 2 seconds, and then it just keeps going and going, and then the next thing you know, you're at like track 50 and you're like, where's this going? It's just silent tracks. But then you hit track 98 and the feedback for physical fills your eardrums and you're like, wait a minute, what's this? There's more songs on this album? And then after physical is over, there's another kick-ass song that follows that. And both of these hidden tracks are two of the best songs on the EP. And when you're done, you're like, oh, God damn it, Trent Reznor, you're a genius. That's sort of what I'm doing here, okay? I'm filling the void here of the last year now with this new episode 180. And I intentionally chose the number 180 because there's something symbolic about doing a 180. And I've been feeling for a while that I needed to make a 180-degree turn from where I left this show off a year ago, because what really needed to happen was that I needed to take the past year to get my shit together. And trust me, it's still not completely together yet, but I'm much further along and more stabilized, and that feels good. I'm back in Seoul. I'm recording this in Seoul. I've got a full-time job after taking 3 years off to travel and do whatever I want while also trying and failing miserably to get this coaching business off the ground. I have money coming in, which feels real nice. And I've reconnected with some of my favorite people in the Soul Share and climbing and Korea communities. And honestly, I'm feeling finally much more grounded these days. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure things out the last year, especially the past few months. And I needed to get clearer on what I really want to share with all of you in this podcast moving forward. And I also had to be honest with myself. And I think that's what I've been working on the most. And one of the truths that I've come to realize is that this podcast is not for you. This podcast is for me. This podcast is a way for me to express myself creatively while at the same time make an effort to connect with people who may be struggling with some of the same internal struggles that have weighed me down because of my anxiety, while also at the same time making sense of how best to process and proceed in a way that promotes reflecting, learning, and growing. But here's where the biggest mindset shift has come for me. I no longer feel the pressure to monetize this podcast anymore. For far too long, I listened to far too many podcast business coaches tell me, if you're not monetizing your podcast, then it's just a hobby. So I tried to turn this podcast into a business. I threw myself into the hustle of monetizing, and guess what? it sucked all of the fun right out of doing this show. When I first started recording episodes with Brian on the bass in his office every Friday years ago, that was so much fun. I look forward to it every week. And getting the chance to shoot the shit with him while also covering topics that resonate with our own lives was a blast. And then when we started adding guests into the mix, it felt like we had a front row seat to pick the brains of some really incredible and really intelligent and really successful people with powerful stories to tell. But I just hated editing episodes because a 1-hour conversation would take me 3 to 4 hours to edit. And I would have people tell me, oh, just leave it as it is. But I've listened to far too many poorly edited podcasts in my day to not put out a product that I was proud to claim as my own, to put my name on. So eventually I decided to hire a production team to do the editing. But that was more money out of my pocket. So in an act of desperation, I turned the show into one giant marketing dumpster fire. And what started as something that fulfilled me creatively became this relentless grind that drained all of the joy out of me. I've got a lot of musician friends who joke about GAD, G-A-D, gear acquisition disease. They buy guitars, pedals, and gadgets they don't really need, but they have fun tinkering with them. And that's how this podcast started. It was fun. It was a creative project geared towards helping people navigate the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. But the moment I got caught up in monetizing it, I started pushing too hard and I lost sight of why I was doing it in the first place. In hindsight, I feel really bad about dragging the always entertaining Matt Hazard into that mess of a last season with me. I mean, we had fun, and I always look forward to hearing him serenade me each week. And yeah, we created episodes that had value and provided useful resources, especially the episode where he talked about his dad with death doula Danielle Slupensky. That was a really great episode. But the rest of those episodes, their main goal was to sell you on working with me. And I think what we all learned is I'm a really shitty salesperson. I've had people tell me that they think that I would do really well in sales, but honestly, I am awful at it. In fact, I fucking hate doing sales. You'd think that I would be good at it because I had a front row seat to one of the best salesmen in the business because my dad is an absolute natural. He's one of those guys who could sell ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves and somehow still make her feel like she got an amazing deal. Watching him work was like watching a master artist. This dude is confident, he's charismatic, and he has just the right amount of bravado. I remember one time I was car shopping. This is years ago. This is like 20 years ago. And I brought my dad with me because he actually used to be a used car salesman. And who better to have in your corner, right, than a guy who knows the business, who knows the lingo. And at the time, he was the owner of and CEO of Digger Anchor, which is the world's #1 selling boat anchor. He's not the CEO anymore, but this is what he was doing at the time. So we go on this test drive and the salesman asks my dad what he did for a living. And so he tells him, and then the next thing you know, my dad is just nonchalantly explaining to this guy how his anchor is superior to other boat anchors on the market and how it works. And this guy is just eating up everything that he's saying. And then my dad says, I even got an anchor in the back of my car if you want to take a look at it. And sure enough, when we got back from the test drive, my dad walked the salesman over to the trunk of his car and showed him one of his beautiful anchors. And this salesman was like, he was like a cobra being mesmerized by a snake charmer. And the next thing I know, the salesman is running back to his office to get his checkbook. And my dad looks at me and he just, with this triumphant smile on his face, says, you know what? I think I'm going to sell this guy an anchor before he sells you this car. And he did. The dude wrote him a check. We went in, we bought the car from him. And I just marveled at this. And so I thought to myself, well, gosh, and, naturally I can do that too. I figured if I just copied his moves and his charm and his approach, I'd be swimming in his success. And I tried so hard to do that with this podcast and with my mindfulness programs and with my coaching services. But I am not a salesperson. It's not who I am. And trying to force it made me feel inauthentic. You can tell when you listen to those episodes, they just feel so salesy and they don't hit the same as the ones where Brian and I, or even me and my guests, we're just being ourselves. And, we're giving someone else the platform to share their expertise and their life experiences. And every time I tried to promote myself or sell something, it just felt like I was wearing someone else's cut-off jean shorts with the pocket showing, because that's my dad's signature look. And instead of exuding confidence, my version would come out as arrogance or conceited or condescending. And instead of being at ease, it felt forced. I'm not my dad. And honestly, I misinterpreted his boldness and authenticity for something it wasn't. So when things weren't going my way, desperation kicked in. And more than anything these past 3 years, I have developed a heightened sense of awareness around how much I default to desperation when things aren't going my way. And as we all know, desperation is a stinky cologne. And in those moments of desperation, I just feel so fucking pathetic. When you're trying way too hard to do something and you're just pushing for something and it's not clicking and you can feel people pulling away, it's not a good feeling. It tears at me. And I have been there and done that way more times than I care to admit. So it begs the question, what's the point in all this? Why do I keep bringing this podcast back? It's very much what Simon Sinek might ask. What's my why? Why am I here? Why do I continue pouring time and energy and money into something that costs me a fortune, that has garnered absolutely no financial return whatsoever? What value am I providing to others if there's no monetary value to the show? I've had guest land new clients who are listeners of this show, and honestly, I've never expected anything in return from them. I was just so thrilled that I could provide them with a platform to share their expertise and life experiences. And maybe that's bad business on my part. It probably is. Maybe I should have included a referral bonus clause in the podcast waiver that guests sign before they come on the show. I never set out to get rich from this podcast. And this whole process of producing and hosting a podcast has come with its own set of growing pains. But all of that has helped me become a more dynamically skilled person. So I'm extremely grateful for that. But at the end of the day, investors want to see a return on their investment. Sponsors want to see a return on their investment. So what value am I providing that's worth investing in? And the answer to that question came in the form of a response to one of my newsletters a few weeks back from my wonderful cousin Corona. Now, if you saw a picture of me and cousin Corona together, you'd be like, how are y'all cousins? Well, let me explain. You have your blood relatives, but then you've also got your soul family. Your blood relatives have known you since birth. They've watched you grow into the person you are today. They're your family, for better or for worse, regardless of how angry they make you at Thanksgiving. And then there's your soul family, those people you meet along the way who just get you from the moment you cross paths. There's no need to explain yourself to them. They see you right into the core of who you are and love you for it. With your soul family, the connection feels effortless, like you've known them forever, even if it's only been a few weeks or a few months or a few days, a few moments. Blood might bind us to our past, but our soul family reminds us of who we truly are and who we're becoming. There's a magic in those connections that can't be explained, but only felt. And that's what Corona is to me, which is why she's my cousin Corona and I'm her cousin Billy. We met at Battle Conquer Muay Thai in rural Thailand. This was January 2023 because it was New Year's Eve. That's right. And the two of us joined forces to entertain the rest of the camp that night with our super sweet dance moves and a rousing rendition of Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot that will always stand the test of time. Corona has a hell of a story to share, and hopefully one day she'll get to share it on this podcast. I'm looking forward to that day. She's taken up a 7-month solo pilgrimage that's carried her on a wellness journey to Thailand, where we met, to making sense of her life in Mexico and Peru, to losing her mother a year ago, to reconnecting with her African roots and having a newborn baby named after her in South Africa. Cousin Corona is just an incredible human being. And given all that she's been through, she took the time to send me this email not too long ago. She said, "Not me tearing up at 6:46 a.m. on a Sunday in dusty-ass Houston, Texas." Oh my God, I love you so much, Cousin Corona. The letter with the personalized "Take care, Corona." Even if that's automated for every subscriber, this was exactly what I needed. You are amazing, cousin. Thank you for your transparency and consistency in your digital letters. You are not a failure at it. It has given me the hope that I've needed to keep making small steps without burnout. I appreciate you. The 19th makes a year since my mom's death, and I can honestly say I've been rolling with the punches, but I am so glad I took the opportunity to leave for 7 months. Now that I'm back, I have a good plan to finish out my goals for my future self. Congrats on taking the small but mighty steps to become a Korean resident. That's amazing. And congrats on the routine. Sending you much love. And it's emails like this that remind me I'm not here to sell you some goddamn mindfulness program or coaching service. I just want to share my journey with you. This messy, imperfect, beautifully amazing journey I've been on. You may remember in episode 94, Jennifer Walton said, "I'm in control of the story. I'm the author. I have a very successful business I've never marketed. I just market myself. I am the brand. I am who I am." And what I learned in corporate America was that people want to work with people they like. And so part of building that brand is really understanding what your personal pyramid is. For me, sharing this journey with you is reason enough to keep doing this podcast week after week, even when I'm feeling like a failure. It's taken me a long, long time to find my voice throughout this process. And I want to thank all of you who have been with me since the beginning, because I've put out some real stinkers in the past. That's why we have a fan faves page, so that you can listen to the really, really good episodes. But now that I've taken the time to stabilize and reflect and be honest with myself, I'm ready to move forward with this podcast again. And if you're still here, if you're still subscribed, thank you for being part of this ride. And if this is your first rodeo, saddle up and hit that subscribe button, because I'm excited to share my journey with you too. Yes, from time to time, I'm going to pitch my programs to you because I spent a lot of time creating those, but selling to you is no longer my objective. Honestly, I'm sorry I tried to commodify you in the first place. And no, this isn't some reverse psychology guilt trip to trick you into doing something you don't feel like doing. That's not my job. That's my mother's job. And I love you, Mom. I love you to death, but I'm not moving back to Sauk Center, Minnesota anytime. As far as bringing back guests on the show, I'm not pressuring myself to do that right now. I'm halfway across the world and my time zone is completely flipped. So trying to coordinate interviews with people back in the States while I'm working full time is a logistical nightmare. So for now, it's just going to be me sharing what I've learned while navigating my own midlife crisis more mindfully. And in doing so, I'm going to ask you the same tough questions I've had to ask myself. I'm going to be honest with you about the struggles, the moments of self-doubt, and we're going to celebrate the small victories as well. It's going to be real, it's going to be raw, and hopefully it's going to be relatable. Hopefully aspects of my journey resonate with you and make you reflect, learn, and grow. And if that's all that happens, then that's a win for me. That's what I'm here for. Because ultimately, I just want to see you win as well. Because as I've said before, this podcast, it's simply my creative outlet. It's how I process the tsunami of anxious thoughts swirling around in my head. And sure, I hope what I share inspires you to take intentional action to jumpstart your life. I hope you take the time to listen. I hope you take the time to reach out, to connect with me. And if you don't, that's cool too. I still want to thank you for being here. This episode 180 is the turning point of this podcast. It's symbolic of the 180-degree shift I've been trying to make over the past year in my own life, moving away from chasing metrics and monetization and turning back to what I love about this show, which is helping people navigate the complexities and possibilities of life's second half through authentic storytelling and self-expression. I can't wait to share more of my journey with you. And if there's something that resonates with you along the way or something that you'd like me to discuss, shoot me a message on LinkedIn at Billy Lahr or DM me on Instagram at mindful_midlife_crisis. If you want more insights, you can join my newsletter at www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com. Let's stay connected. Let's figure out this whole midlife journey together. What do you say? Because remember, as evidenced by my own journey, progress is not linear. Our growth looks more like the stock market. Some days we're up, some days we're down, and we may not reap the benefits for a while. But if we play the long game and continue to invest in being consistent, disciplined, patient, compassionate, and connected to others, you'll see that that investment in yourself will pay huge dividends as you navigate the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. So with that, this is Billy. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. May you feel happy, healthy, and loved. Take care, friends.